There is something God showed me in the early hours of the morning that I was afraid to say out loud, because some truths are so powerful, so dangerous to the kingdom of darkness, that the moment you hear them, your entire financial reality will never be the same again. I need you to lean in close right now. Not because I am whispering out of weakness, but because what I am about to tell you was never the one whose faith is still burning, even after disappointment tried to blow it out. Are you that person? Then do not move. Do not scroll. Do not look away, because in the next 2 minutes, something is going to shift in your spirit that will begin to attract money miracles into your life with a speed that will shock even you. I have seen. But because they discovered the hidden law of divine attraction that most believers walk past their entire lives without ever knowing it existed. This is not theory. This is not motivation. This is a spiritual key, forged in prayer, sealed in scripture. And today, right now, God has ordained that this key finds your hand. But I must warn you, do not tell anyone what is about to happen to you. Because the miracle that is coming needs silence to grow, faith to breathe, and just 2 minutes of your complete and total surrender to the God who owns the silver, owns the gold, and has already written your name on a blessing that has been waiting for this exact moment to find you. There is a reason Jesus never performed every miracle in the middle of a crowd. There is a reason that when he raised Jairus' daughter from the dead, he put everyone outside first. He cleared the room. He removed the noise, the weeping, the doubt, the commentary of people who had already made up their minds that the situation was hopeless. And only then, in the quiet, in the sacred stillness of a room that unbelief could not enter, did he speak life back into what everyone else had declared finished. That was not coincidence. That was divine principle. What God does in secret, the enemy cannot intercept in public. I want you to understand something that took me many years of walking with God to fully grasp. The miracle is not born in the announcement. The miracle is not conceived in the celebration. It is conceived in the secret place. It is formed in the hidden hour. It grows in silence the way a seed grows underground, invisible to every eye, untouched by every hand, protected by the very earth that covers it. And the moment you dig it up too soon to show someone, to prove something, to silence a doubter, what God has not yet finished building. And the enemy, who cannot stop what he cannot see, suddenly has access. Suddenly there are opinions. Suddenly there is doubt spoken over your dream. Suddenly there are voices saying it will not work. It has never worked. People like you do not get breakthroughs like that. And slowly, without even realizing it, your faith begins to bend under the weight of what other people have said. Not because their words have power over God, but because you gave them access to something that was still fragile, still forming, still in the hands of the potter. Money miracles in particular require this kind of protection. I have noticed in my own life and in the lives of those I have walked beside in faith that the most dramatic financial turnarounds always began in a private moment between one soul and one God. Not in a conference, not in a committee, in a quiet room, in an early morning, in a tearful surrender where nobody was watching except heaven. And in that secret place, God planted something, a connection that would come, a door that would open. An idea that would generate what years of striving could not. A phone call from someone who had no logical reason to think of you in that moment. These things do not arrive by accident. They are released from heaven the moment you stop performing your faith for an audience and start practicing it in the presence of God alone. The enemy is not afraid of your public declarations nearly as much as he is terrified of your private ones. Because a man who will cry out to God when nobody is watching, who will worship when there is no music playing, who will believe when the numbers in his account say otherwise and tell no one about it, that man has tapped into a dimension of faith that produces miracles the world cannot explain and critics cannot argue with. Because the evidence will be undeniable. The testimony will be living. And by the time anyone sees what God has done, it will already be too late for the enemy to stop it. Most people believe that the length of the prayer determines the weight of the answer. They think that if they pray for 1 hour, God is more impressed than if they pray for 2 minutes. They believe that the volume of words somehow increases the voltage of heaven's response. And so they pray long, wandering prayers that drift from one topic to another, losing focus, losing fire, losing the sharp edge of faith somewhere in the middle of all that religious noise. And heaven, I want to tell you today, is not moved by the length of your prayer. Heaven is moved by the precision of your faith. Think about what happened when Elijah prayed on Mount Carmel. The prophets of Baal had been crying out all morning. They had been cutting themselves, dancing, shouting, performing their desperation for hours, and nothing came. But Elijah stepped forward and prayed one prayer, one focused, faith-filled, specific prayer. And fire fell, not because Elijah was louder, not because he prayed longer, but because every single word he released was aimed. Every syllable carried intention. Every breath behind those words was soaked in the absolute certainty that the God of Israel was not sleeping and was not slow and was not indifferent to what was happening on that mountain. That is what 2 minutes of focused faith looks like. It is not casual. It is not distracted. It is not one eye on your phone and one hand lifted toward heaven. It is the moment when you shut everything else out, when you bring your whole mind and your whole spirit into one singular point of contact with God, and you speak to your financial situation with the authority of someone who actually believes that the God who owns cattle on 1,000 hills is personally interested in the details of your life. That kind of prayer does not need an hour. That kind of prayer needs a moment. But it needs the right kind of moment. I have seen people spend 30 minutes in prayer and touch nothing. And I have seen people spend 2 minutes in prayer and shake the foundations of their financial reality. The difference was never time. The difference was always focus. The difference was whether they came to God with a scattered mind full of worries and half-formed thoughts, or whether they came with a sharpened faith, a specific request, and an unshakable expectation that something was about to move. Focus is the catalyst that transforms ordinary prayer into a financial miracle. It is the lens that concentrates the light of faith until it burns through every chain that has been holding your provision captive. And those chains are real. Financial bondage is not always about poor decisions or limited opportunity. Sometimes it is a spiritual chain forged by years of poverty thinking, by generational patterns of lack, by agreements you made with fear when you told yourself that this is relating to God as someone you have to convince, and start relating to Him as someone who has already decided in your favor. It shifts when your prayers move from desperate begging to confident receiving. It changes when your inner conversation about money stops sounding like a victim and starts sounding like an heir. Because you are not a beggar standing outside the door of heaven's provision. You are a child of the King, and the inheritance was prepared before you were born. The moment your spirit comes into that alignment, the moment your faith catches up with what grace has already done, things begin to move. Not because you finally worked hard enough, not because you finally said the right combination of words, but because you finally stopped blocking with unbelief what God has been trying to release toward you all along. The provision was never the problem. The positioning was, we live in a world that has confused noise with power. Somewhere along the way, the louder something is, the more seriously people take it. The bigger the platform, the more followers, the more views, the more shares, the more it must be true. The more it must be working, the more God must be in it. And this culture has crept into the prayer lives of believers in ways that are quietly devastating. People have started performing their faith instead of practicing it. They have started measuring their spiritual effectiveness by how much they can show, how much they can post, how much they can announce. And in doing so, they have unknowingly traded the weapon of silence for the comfort of noise. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not the absence of faith. Silence is where God speaks most clearly, moves most freely, and works most powerfully. When Elijah was running from Jezebel, burned out and broken and hiding in a cave, God did not come to him in the earthquake. He did not come in the fire. He did not come in the rushing, mighty wind that tore the mountains apart. He came in a still small voice, a sound so quiet that it required absolute stillness to hear it. And in that silence, God gave Elijah